Well, good morning everybody and welcome to our honey room. As you can see, it's the 3 metre square honey room that I talked about on the podcast. We've been, this is a follow-up video to the video where we showed you us collecting the supers, putting the clearer boards on and then collecting the supers this morning. So we've got a stack of supers from one of the apiaries here. We're going to go through the entire extraction process that we use. So once they come off the supers, we'll weigh them, extract them here using the brush uncapper into the api melter. We'll extract them in the Carl Fritz 20 frame radial extractor, and then from here they'll go into a strainer, through into a settling tank, and then from there into buckets ready for storage. So we'll get the camera in and we'll start the whole process. It'll get a little bit noisy because of the brush uncapper and the extractor, but as we go we'll just show you what we're doing and how all the equipment works. So the first thing to do is to weigh the full super, and we're going to pop it onto our weighing scales here. The board on the top is actually a jig to help the frames pop up from the super to make it easier to handle. So I'll just lift this across. So all the frames now pop up and we can just separate them out. And then we can look at the scale beneath and take a reading, which is the gross reading of all of the honey, the wax, but the frames and the super as well. So this particular super, the first one that we've picked out, has actually got some really nice comb in it. It's on unwired foundation. So we're going to set this one aside, and this will be used for cut comb production, and we'll produce another video to show you that. So I'm just going to move this out of the honey room and then we'll move on to another super. So I've moved a few of the supers away because there are several that are going to be great for cut comb, and as I say, we'll produce another video to show you the cut comb process another day. So all that we're doing is taking the frames out of the super. You can see that some of them are not fully capped, but the honey, when you shake the frames, none of the honey drips out, so that means that it's reduced in water content sufficiently to be extracted. So before we use the brush uncapper and turn that on, it's going to get a little bit noisy. I normally just take off the comb that's on the top of the frames, and I just use an old bread knife and just cut it into the api melter, just to cut the top off the frame so that it's nice and clean, ready to go back into the box. You could scrape it off all of the frames in the super, but that tends to throw a lot of the wax onto the floor. So I like to do it over the api melter. Remember, this is a relatively small processing outfit. So we'll turn the brush uncapper on. These are nylon brushes which will spin towards me, and then all I do is hold the frame close to it and just lift it up, and it will knock all of the wax cappings off and produce a nice flat finish. So let's do that now. So that's just one side where the cappings have now been completely removed, and we'll do the other side and then it's ready to go into the extractor. So we've got two sides uncapped, and that can now go into the extractor. And then we just continue with uncapping all of these frames and moving them all into the extractor. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and we'll turn on the brush uncapper for the duration of that. So we'll catch up when we've filled the extractor with 20 frames. So this is our last frame going in. We've now got 20 frames in the extractor. We've got one or two that are slightly less full, empty than the others, but you need to make sure that you've got a full balanced load before you start the extractor up. So if you only had, let's say, 12 frames, you'd put 3 in each of the quarter sections. So this particular extractor is a Carl Fritz 20 frame radial extractor. So we make sure that the switch is off. The lid has a trip switch on it, so we can pop that in. Make sure that the variable speed, so this is a manual speed adjustment on it. It's not an automatic extractor. So we turn this on and then we can adjust the speed using this lever on the top. So it's going to get a little bit noisy, so we'll turn it on. So what I tend to do is to switch it on, turn the speed up to get it moving, and then just knock the speed back a little bit so that it can throw out some of the honey before turning it up to full speed and extracting all of the honey from the frame. So let's give that a go. So that's the extractor switched off. We just wait for it to finish spinning and then we can open up the main side of the extractor and we can now start taking the frames out and putting them back into the supers from where they came. As you can see, some of them have got some pollen in and that doesn't extract, but for the most part we've got all of the honey out of these frames, which is fantastic. So we've got our Jordan 100 kilo settling tank and the Jordan strainer which fits on top of that. I've got a bucket stand here which clips over the top of the strainer and allows me just to leave the bucket in place. We'd normally just continually now extract, uncap them, extract them, honey going into the bucket, and then we bring the bucket up, pour it in. Obviously make sure that the settling tank gate is closed. So I'm just going to shut off the tap on the extractor and then swap the buckets over and we'll pour it through the strainer. So we've got our honey here, which is mostly from our blackberry crop. We'll pour that through the strainer. And then the bucket can sit on top of the bucket stand. You can hear it's now straining through and we can continue with the extraction process. So we've been extracting for a while now and we've got plenty of buckets coming through the strainer into our settling tank. This is really just a provision to allow us to accumulate a reasonable amount of honey before we go into our buckets for storage. So I'll just drain one into the bucket so that we can get some honey coming through. And this is going to be mostly blackberry honey, which is absolutely delicious, fabulous flavour to it, and is probably the standard kind of honey that we produce in the summer. So we'll just run this through into a bucket. And then we'll weigh the bucket and we'll check the water content, and I'll produce another video just showing this bucket with the water content, and then it'll be ready for storage. So that's our extraction process. We've got quite a few boxes that we're going to save for cut comb honey, which is fabulous because it produces a really good product for us. We've got a few more supers to continue to extract this afternoon, and we'll be cracking on with that. If you've got any questions, then please do pop them beneath the video on the Patreon page, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.